The poverty rate, according to the Census Bureau, is 11%, isn't it, in America?
In a tense and revealing moment during a Senate Banking Committee hearing, John Kennedy pressed Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on a topic that often gets buried beneath economic headlines: poverty in America. Make sure you watch this video to the very end. You don't want to miss how this all plays out.
Senator Kennedy.
Hello, Mr. Secretary. I'm over here. How are you?
Good.
Mr. Secretary, as you're also head of the IRS, we've had some tough ice storms. Would you and your colleagues consider an extension on allowing extension to allow people to file taxes a little bit later?
Senator, I've been in touch with the governor of the great state of Louisiana, and he and I and my staff are working on that. It is traditional to grant extensions for events like this.
Good. If Canada came to the United States, well, let me preface this by saying I understand that tariffs have a number of purposes, but the foremost reason for tariffs is to try to stop other countries from taking advantage of us through either their tariffs or trade barriers. If Canada, for example, came to the United States and said, we're going to zero tariffs in the United States. All of them are off on our end. Would you, Mr. President, speaking to our president, go to zero tariffs and then just let Canadian companies and American companies compete on a level playing field?
Absolutely not. As we saw last week, when 2 weeks ago, when Prime Minister Carney went to China, he lowered tariffs on Chinese EVs from 100% to 6%. U.S. has a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. We couldn't let our northern border be used as a way for Chinese EVs to come into the U.S.
Right. Okay. I'm going to lead you a little bit because Senator Scott is a she-bear when it comes to time. The poverty rate, according to the Census Bureau, is 11%, isn't it, in America?
I'll take it. I'll take your word, Senator.
And that's the Census Bureau defines poverty, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that the Census Bureau, in defining poverty and determining that our poverty rate is 11%, or 36 million Americans, which makes us look bad, only will consider direct cash payments from the federal government to poor people, such as, let's say, SSI payments or TANF payments?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the Census Bureau, in determining poverty, doesn't include non-cash payments? It doesn't include Medicaid or food stamps or housing subsidies or refundable tax credits. Isn't that true?
That is correct, Senator.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Mom, 2 kids, poverty level for her and her kids is $27,000. Mom works part-time. She makes $11,000. According to our Census Bureau, she's poor. She's below the poverty line. But she also receives, she works, I recall I said, makes $11,000 a year. She receives $4,100 in refundable earned income tax credits, $3,400 in refundable child tax credits, which means she gets a check, $9,200 in food stamps, $9,500 in housing subsidies, $900 in utility bill subsidies, $16,000 in Medicaid, $31,000 a year in free school lunches, and $6,000 in TANF payments. If you add that up, that's $64,100 a year, according to math.
I'll believe your arithmetic, Senator.
Okay. But using the Census Bureau's definition of poor, they don't include all these payments. They just include her income and the TANF payment. Does that make sense to you?
No, sir, and you should bring that up with the Commerce Department.
I know, but you've got influence. I know how close you and the Commerce Secretary are. I'm hoping you could bring it up with somebody above.
The president says we're opposites, and I'm tall.
I'm not going to comment on that. Would you talk to the president about this? If you include all cash and non-cash payments, the poverty rate in America is 1%.
That's a good point to end on.
Thank you,
I
Senator.
told you he was a she-bear.
From the start, Kennedy made it clear he wasn't interested in broad talking points or polished political language. He zeroed in on the numbers, asking how the administration defines poverty, how it measures it, and whether those measurements actually reflect the lived reality of everyday Americans. It's a line of questioning that sounds simple on the surface, but it quickly exposed deeper disagreements about how economic success is being portrayed. Bessent, for his part, leaned on official data pointing to declining poverty rates by certain metrics and emphasizing economic growth indicators. But Kennedy wasn't satisfied. He challenged whether those statistics tell the full story, suggesting that government formulas can sometimes paint a rosier picture than what people experience at the grocery store, at the gas pump, or when paying rent. And that's really where this exchange becomes important. Because it highlights a fundamental issue in economic policy: what gets measured and what gets missed. Poverty isn't just a number. It's not just a percentage in a report. It's a reflection of whether people can afford basic necessities, whether wages keep up with inflation, and whether families feel any sense of financial stability. Kennedy's questioning seemed aimed at exposing what he views as a disconnect between Washington and reality. He pushed the idea that redefining poverty or adjusting formulas doesn't actually reduce hardship, it just changes how it's reported. And in doing so, he tapped into a broader frustration shared by many Americans who feel like economic progress hasn't reached them. At the same time, Bessent's responses reflect the administration's position that by traditional metrics, there has been measurable progress. From their perspective, data-driven policy requires consistent standards, even if those standards don't capture every nuance of individual experience. So what we're left with is more than just a back and forth between a senator and a cabinet official. It's a clash of perspectives. One side questioning the credibility and completeness of the data, the other defending the systems used to track economic well-being. And for viewers, the key takeaway is this: statistics matter, but so does context. A falling poverty rate doesn't automatically mean people feel less poor. Rising GDP doesn't guarantee financial security at the household level. And debates like this one remind us that behind every data point are real lives, real struggles, and real consequences. In the end, Kennedy's line of questioning forces a broader conversation: are we measuring the right things, and more importantly, are we solving the right problems? Because if the numbers say one thing, but people feel another, that gap is where trust in institutions begins to erode. And closing that gap may be one of the biggest challenges facing policymakers today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.